I asked you on Twitter to give me your most creative, competitive, and Call of Duty would you rather questions, so let's answer a dozen of them. This was one I got a couple different times. Would you rather win everything except for champs or just win champs? And I feel like this is one of those questions that comes up every single year. We always discuss it. Let's just say using this year, for example, there's 4 majors and there's 1 champs, right? Obviously champs being the most desirable one that you'd want to win. Me personally, I think win champs is the one everybody's going to remember the most. Although I do think there's that one caveat in here where if, let's say you win 4 majors and I just win champs, I still would say you had the better overall season, right? You won 4 of the 5 events, but winning champs is of course the big one. Every single player wants to win the ring. It's also got the biggest prize pool. So I'm going to say champs, but I mean, either way, you're going to be remembered. This is a similar question, but from a different perspective. Would you rather your team win every major or lose champs, or win champs and lose every major? From a fan perspective, my answer is actually still the same. I feel like if you win 4 majors and then lose champs, at the end of the year, you're ending on a low note where, like, yes, the 4 majors were awesome and that season was probably lit for like most of the time, right? For those 7 months. You're ending the season on a low note, which isn't the most fun. When you win at the end of the year, especially now that champs is at the end of the year, right? Back in the day, back in like AW, you know, the early years, it wasn't actually the last event. Nowadays, champs being the last event, ending the year on that high is definitely, I feel like, where you want to be. It also shows you got better as the year progressed. So again, same answer, although different perspective. Would you rather have 2 CDL rings or 2 rings before the CDL era? Essentially, what do you think is more impressive? I think for me, the honest answer is I don't really look at them as much of a difference, right? To me, if you have 2 rings, you have 2 rings. Doesn't matter which era you really won them. If I had to pick one, which, I mean, I do, that's the point of this video, I'm gonna be a little bit of a nostalgia merchant, and I'm gonna say pre-CDL era rings. I think with more teams and a bit of a longer grind to get through 2 champs and actually winning it was definitely pretty cool. I also think when you look back at a guy like Scump or Formal, some of the best players of all time, some of probably 2 of the 3 maybe most individually talented players of all time we've ever seen, both of them only have 1 ring. It was really, really hard to win champs back in the day. Hence why we've really not seen we've never seen an Aura go back to back. We don't see too many players that have 2 rings or more, right? When you look at the grand scheme of players. And there was just more teams, more players back then. So to me, that just feels like a bit more of a feat. But overall, 10 years from now, we're not going to look back and say, oh, Shotzi has 2 rings in the CDL, whereas X player has 2 rings before the CDL. There's a big difference. I don't think it's really going to matter in years from now, but for right now, I guess I'll go pre-CDL rings. Would you rather have Dashy's aim or Shotzi's movement? This one is a fun one because at the end of the day, either one of these is obviously going to be godlike, some of the best of the best. For me though, I'm going Shotzi's movement. I think movement tends to be a bigger skill gap in Call of Duty than aim. I think especially with the way aim assist is these days, every single player has good aim, right? Obviously Dashy is up there with some of the best we've ever seen, and having some of the best aim is definitely a really, really good thing and would be pretty important. But I think having that movement gap, looking at a guy like Shotzi or a guy like Hydra, definitely gives you an edge over other players. It's harder for other players, I think, to match that. I think Shotzi's movement, bigger gap for me personally, so that's what I pick. Would you rather have the CDL go back to 5v5 with domination as the 3rd mode for 1 year, or have a year of competitive COD with no red dots and no ninja perk? I'm going 5v5 with domination, right? I think no red dots and no ninja just takes out such a massive gap in the game of just like having awareness, understanding where your opponents are coming from, and not just kind of like sitting there and like sound whoring and listening to where people are coming from. I think that to me is just super boring and really dumbs down the game. 5v5, I think it was really good in BO4. It wasn't as good in Modern Warfare 2019, and domination is not my favorite competitive mode, right? We've seen it in a couple different years. It never was all that entertaining, but I'd much rather have, honestly, even without the red dots, I'd much rather have 5v5 with domination than just a no ninja game. Would you rather let Hydra leave or let Scrap leave? This question, I mean, I don't even know what the answer is here, right? This is one of those questions where there's no right answer and there's no wrong answer, right? Like letting one of these guys leave sucks from the perspective of a Thieves fan like myself. Obviously, I don't want either of these guys to leave. I want them to be on Thieves for the rest of their career. But if I had to pick one that I would rather let leave, man, there's really not a good answer for this one because both of these guys are like the epitome of consistency, the epitome of the peak at each of their roles, right? One is an SMG, one is an AR. I don't even know, bro. I genuinely don't. I'm trying to find a reason to pick one of these guys, and I don't know what is the deciding factor. Part of me wants to say I'd rather let Scrap leave because I think overall the SMG role tends to be more impactful and a little bit harder to be consistent at. But Scrap also plays a super fast AR. and has pretty much been a top 3 player every single year he's been in the league for all 3 of these years, right? Adding Black Ops 6 in there as his 3rd season. So he's always at the top. Same with Hydra, but he hasn't always been top 3 like Scrap has been, although Hydra's played in more games. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer here. I think I'm going to say I'd rather let Hydra leave, maybe just for the sole fact that Scrap does a bit more content-wise and might bring in a bit more of a fan base and the trash talk and things like that. And Hydra's still got a big French fan base and EU fan base. I'm gonna go, we'll rather let Hydra leave just because Scrap, I think, has been top 3 every single year, MVP player caliber every single year of his career, and is, I think, by far the best AR and plays an AR role differently than most other main ARs in the game. Man, that question's tough, yo. Shout out to Slayer. Before we get into the next Would You Rather, I just wanted to remind you to check out 1v1me, the sponsor of this video. You can use code ATC or click the link in the description for a $10 stake. It's the best place to watch and stake esports all day. BO6, Madden, FIFA, 2K, all of these things. It's super fun. Watch some of the best streamers at those games, but always remember to gamble responsibly. And once again, thank you to 1v1me. Would you rather 1v4 clutch to win a major or get MVP during the CDL season? This one's actually really good and really creative, so shout out to Dilly. CDL MVP, right, for the whole season. You were good all year long. You probably also won an event or at least one event, right? Maybe multiple, which definitely is a pretty good big accolade and probably one. I don't know actually what would be more remembered. If I probably honestly, I think the 1v4 clutch to win a major, like if we're talking like, let's say it's like game 7, round 11, 1v4 clutch to win a major, that's probably one of the most remembered plays of all time. So I'm gonna pick that one. Would you rather be a COD org owner or a player for an org? For me personally, I'd rather be an org owner. I think being behind the scenes and doing things for an org itself is always been something I've been really interested in and would be something I'd definitely like to do one day, working for an esports org. Maybe not as an owner because that sounds like it's probably pretty expensive to get into, but it's definitely something I feel like I would be interested in being a part of an org, like in that capacity, in a management, more higher level capacity one day. Would you rather cuddle Preston or Optic Texas Burner? I mean, give me both, right? Give me both. Would you rather continue with Control as the 3rd mode or have 1v1? Like each team bans 2 players and between the other 2 plays a 1v1. This is actually pretty interesting. Imagine if they did this where instead of Control, it was like you did like a pick ban system for players on the team and then they 1v1. So you get like Hydra versus Simp in a 1v1 first to 6 rounds or whatever, however it would work, and wins that map, right, and adds to the series. I'm still going Control either way. I think Control, even though for me personally, Control is not the most entertaining to watch unless it's like a really bang out map or very back and forth offenses or a really cool game, like close round 5. Generally, I think Control is a little bit boring, but I do think in terms of competitive integrity, Control is actually pretty good at deciding who's like a better team because you got to play your life. You got to play together. You have offense and defense. The top teams are the teams that are also really good at Control. Would you rather have the CDL die or just survive? And he goes on to say, if it was to die, we could get a new comp model or comp could just stop altogether. I guess that's one of those risks you take, right? If that is the risk, I would rather the CDL continue on, right? I think if there's a possibility that competitive COD could go away altogether if the CDL was to die, I think in reality, if the CDL died, it wouldn't go away altogether, but using that as a potential possibility, I'd rather the CDL continue. I also think with the way the CDL is, and maybe this isn't exactly part of the question, I think it could continue to get better over the years, right? They slowly started adding more things. The minors this year, maybe we can get them to continue to change the format or add in more pro-ams or host more events, things like that. But I think we're slowly heading in a better direction with the minors, with DreamHack this past season, and maybe we can continue to fix it. So I would rather keep the CDL around if it meant we didn't have that chance of going away altogether. Would you rather have only LAN matches or have all LAN series be best of 7 instead of best of 5, with the exception of the finals being best of 9? Both of these sound like they're probably pretty good, right, altogether. I think if every single series was a best of 7, it would get a little bit tiring, especially if we had, like, imagine you got to watch like LAG versus Falcons best of 7, right? Like, no one's really going to be interested in that in a best of 5, let alone a best of 7. So I'd rather everything be on LAN, right? If the league went to being on LAN, all the teams moved to Texas, let's say, because it's a bunch here, all of them moved to Columbus, where the HQ is for the CDL. Having all the matches be on LAN would be great. Would you rather have a boots on the ground Treyarch title with legacy maps from the old BO4s with no new maps, or a brand new Treyarch title that's actually finished, right? That's a good caveat in there, with BO3 level comp support and a CWL event structure? I'm taking the second part easily. A new Treyarch game with really good competitive support and the CWL event structure would be godlike in my opinion, especially because he does make that note that the game is finished, right? It is like a really good, well-finished, polished COD with good support. I think that would be godlike. As much as I love some of the legacy maps and titles and just things we saw in like BO2, BO1, BO3, BO4, right? All the Black Ops pre-CDL. The new one would be super fun. Would you rather have a ring and be dropped from an org or be a challengers player carrying players who have a ring? Interesting question. I'd rather have a ring, right? If I'm looking at this from a player perspective, even if you were someone who won a ring and then ended up getting dropped and like that was kind of the only thing you did in your career, you still got a ring. You're still always going to be remembered. Being a challengers player that doesn't really get to the league or maybe gets to the league occasionally, but is down there winning challengers and carrying people, not many people I think are going to remember that down the line. But those are some CDL would you rather questions. If you enjoyed this video, definitely click the video on screen where I reacted to a bunch of your hot takes. There were some spicy ones in that video. I posted this a while ago, but check it out if you haven't already. Make sure to drop a sub and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one.